The tree which moves some to tears of joy is in the eyes of others only a green thing that stands in the way. Some see nature all ridicule and deformity, and some scarce see nature at all. But to the eyes of the man of imagination, nature is imagination itself. William Blake. Salutations and welcome to The Fairy Ring. I am your host and cosmic friend, Michelle Lark. This is the podcast for you if you love mythology, folklore, mysticism, storytelling, and are open to the strange side of life. The Fairy Ring is a portal into our curiosity, and who knows where it may lead. Here we open our hearts and our minds to the beautiful and the bizarre, the seen and the unseen. You can listen to all episodes of The Fairy Ring for free at www.enterthefairyring.com or your preferred podcast platform. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode. In this moment, we enter the fairy ring, into the dark forest where 13 trees stand in a circle, each one representing a cycle of the moon. You call them by name: Birch, Rowan, Ash, Alder, Willow, Hawthorn, Oak, Holly, Hazel, Vine, Ivy, Reed, and Elder. After the last name is called a gust of leaves spirals, and a druid wearing a bird-feathered cloak and braided hair appears. One of these trees is in your soul, says the druid, as he has never believed trees to be empty things, but spirits that house the fair folk and nature deities, that they communed and divined if you just listened, and that they were keepers of an ancient knowledge. Listen to them, says the druid, as he casts strange sticks onto the forest floor. But before you can ask for an explanation, leaves coil again with a gust of cool breeze. When it calms, he is gone, feathers on the ground with the sticks. You pick each one up delicately, examining them in the moonlight, noticing that they are from the same wood of the 13 trees, carved with the letters of the Ogham, the Celtic Tree language, an ancient Gaelic script. You aren't sure how you know this, but the knowledge is rooted inside of you somehow. You look at the trees and see corresponding letters that match the sticks on each of them. You walk by each one, touching them gently, letting new wisdom become rooted inside of you, knowledge that you have never known, yet have never forgotten. After you walk past the 13, you cast the staves again and see the moonlight brightly reflecting on the tree that watched over your birth, and you breathe with the leaves as it reveals your true nature. Just like you have a sun sign in Western Vedic astrology, you also have a sacred tree that correlates to the day of your birth. Celtic Tree Astrology is a system designed around druid knowledge of natural cycles and their profound connection to trees. Celtic druids worship trees, see them as spirits, gentle giants that we can commune with, gain wisdom from. And if druidism is something you're unfamiliar with, it's like a soothsayer or a priest, but instead of a church, they work within the forest. They are also sometimes called a forest sage. Druid divination can include casting leaves, cloud gazing, and using the Ogham on sticks or staves. The Ogham is an ancient Irish alphabet or Gaelic script, but is still a part of the living practice of Irish folk magic and can be used for divination, similar to casting Nordic runes or the Elder Futhark. The Ogham can also sometimes be pronounced the Ogham, I believe, but it's based in a language of trees. The word Gaelic translates to forest people, so Irish folklore, mythology, magic is so intrinsically tied to the forest. So the Celtic Tree calendar is organized in a really cool way. It's inspired by the Ogham alphabet and its connection to trees. It follows the lunar cycles, which is 13 months, which lines up to the 13 phases of the moon. Each month is 28 days long, with the exception of the last month, the Alder, which has an additional day called the Day of Creation. Each month has its own sacred tree and letter of the Ogham tied to it. I thought it would be fun, maybe enlightening, to go through each of the tree signs and their corresponding letter and read you your horoscope, the gifts, opportunities, attributes attributed to each tree sign, and that you might find it maybe endearing to find out what tree you are. But this is for entertainment purposes, so you're not bound by anything that I say, but if it resonates, cool, take it. I do think that it is important to note that although this calendar is inspired by Celtic lore roots, it does seem to be relatively modern and has sparked some controversy among Celtic scholars. I wanted to read a passage from Celtic Myth and Magic by Edain Mcoy. The lunar tree calendar of the Celts has long been a source of controversy among Celtic scholars. Some even claim it was never part of the old Celtic world, but was an invention of author-researcher Robert Graves. The Druids are generally given credit by other researchers for creating this system. There seems to be no scholarly evidence to prove otherwise, yet many Celtic pagans feel that the system predates the time of Druidic influence over Celtic religious matters. It is probably reasonable to believe that the truth lies somewhere in between these three extremes. It is most likely that the tree system was in place with minor regional variations before the time of the Druids who experimented with it, discovered the magical properties of each tree, and codified all the information into the system we have today. And just a bit of backstory. Behind Robert Graves, he was a British poet and a historical novelist, but his father, Alfred Graves, was a celebrated Irish poet and figure in the Gaelic revival. They were both Celtists and students of Irish mythology. So I believe that Robert's translation of the calendar comes from his book, The White Goddess. So at the end of the day, you decide, but Druidism, the Ogham, those are ancient, beautiful things that are still alive today. And I think that even if it is a modern interpretation or a modern kind of form of divination, the tree calendar, who's to say that these modern tools can be less impactful or powerful? But in the end, again, this is just for entertainment purposes. At the end of the day, they're just tools, and you have the free will to decide who you are. But let's start with the first month, the first tree. If you were born between December 24th and January 20th, your tree sign is the birch. The archetype associated with it is the achiever. Birch can be found all over Northern Europe and North America. It's a very tall tree, also called a pioneer tree, because of its ability to restart the woodlands after a natural disaster. The sap of a birch tree is very sweet, and it can be harvested in the spring for beer and for wine. It has a very pretty peeling white bark, which gives it an ethereal look all year round. The Ogham letter tied to birch is Bay or Beth. Letter B, this is the first letter of the Ogham, and it talks about protection, warnings, also purification, clearing, change, rebirth. It can also talk about discipline. Birch folk are natural leaders, protectors, motivators. You are highly driven and you have the gift to inspire others to action. Sometimes you can feel over-responsible for the people around you and can edit yourself when you want to be seen as calm, collected, reliable, and consistent. But when you let go of your responsibility for other people and you turn that passion inward, you find this wonderful power, this really fresh outlook on life, this very transformative zeal that other people find very appealing. Although you can be very tough, you are a very fair and tolerant person. It bothers you to see things out of balance, so you may be drawn to activism, positions of leadership, in order to create harmony in your external world. You're always on the look for new things and to expand your worldview. Birch folk make amazing conversationalists because they retain a lot of information, but are also very good active listeners. It is a very special and surprising thing when you earn a birch folks' trust, because they have such a charming, bubbly side that they don't show everybody. They can really amuse people with their quick wit and their ability to see beauty where others cannot. They're also a great person to have around in an emergency, as they are comfortable taking command when the situation calls for it. So enjoy your gifts, birch folk. Lead where you are called, but remember that you can guide someone, you can teach someone, but you cannot do their work for them. If you were born between January 21st and February 17th, your tree sign is the Rowan. Your archetype is the thinker. The Rowan tree is native to Scotland and Wales, but it can grow all over Europe, China, and Russia. It is a shorter tree that likes to grow by the high moors and the mountains. It has beautiful white flowers that grow around May, but turn into a deep red around autumn time. It's also nicknamed the wizard tree and has a connection to the god Thor. The Ogham tied to the Rowan is Louis or Louise L. It is the second letter of the Ogham alphabet. It means flame, protection, blessings, insight. Talks about having a deep, keen awareness. This tree is tied to Bridget, the Celtic goddess of the home and hearth. She's a fire goddess who has a soft spot for mothers. So Rowan folk, you keep other people in mind. You want your community, your friends, your family around you, and you want them happy, healthy, and succeeding. If you are a Rowan person, you are known to have excellent taste from decor, fashion, food, literature, cinema. You tend to be very nurturing and always seeking some kind of self-improvement. You believe that the mind is very connected to the body, so because of this, you have a special affinity for astral travel, dream work, and clair abilities. You have a great sense of discernment. Part of this is from your natural intuition, but your love for others and wanting to make sure that you look out for them. So you have a kind of mother's intuition, whether you're female, male, non-binary, about the people that you love. Sometimes you may have trouble letting people go and learning for themselves, being a bit overprotective. But if you shelter people too much, it can create codependency and sometimes resentment, which is a shame because you have a gift to really inspire courage in people. So don't forget that. People really do benefit from Rowan folk watching their backs. But it is, again, important to know when to let someone go and let them learn for themselves. You are also a visionary and you have a lot of patience. The challenge for you is to not hold yourself back because you don't want to intimidate others or isolate yourself. The right people will support and love you when you embrace the fullness of your fierce nature. If you were born between February 18th and March 17th, your tree is the ash tree. The archetype is the enchanter. Ash trees are often planted around holy wells, sites in the fall. These trees take on a beautiful orange color. They are very masculine, a very masculine energy due to a very deep, solid root system. Ash wood is highly flammable, so it's usually associated with fire and passion. It is supposed to offer protection while encouraging growth and change. The Ogham letter is nigh on maybe noon N. It's the letter N, meaning forked branch, like an olive branch, meaning peace, a break in battle. The letter also talks about lofty or heavenly beauty, perhaps the beauty found in times of peace. Those born under the ash tree are really drawn to independent thought. If you're an ash folk, you are likely a grounded dreamer and an artist, meaning that you're rooted, but you're reaching for the stars, if you will. You can look past the surface level of things and get to the core and the heart of it. Sometimes what you find troubles you and can challenge your sometimes more idyllic nature. You can get really disillusioned with material things. You value experiences more because you can be very compassionate and charming. People do seek your company, but you have a frequent need to pull away and find solitude. You need a lot of time to process and socially recover. You are a natural healer, but you can get overwhelmed with other people's energy because you don't just absorb the positive energy, you also absorb the negative energy as well. So for people under the ash sign, self-care is really vital for your well-being. You may feel the most recharged after you do something creative. Because you are a grounded artist, being creative is going to be the most grounding thing for you to do and really can help you transmute energy in a positive way. Even though you are dreamy, again, you are still very grounded, you are very stable, just the world can sometimes be a little too intense for you. Remember that it isn't your job to carry or feel all of the energy of the world. If you were born between March 18th and April 14th, your tree sign is the Alder and your archetype is the Trailblazer. The Alder tree grows in wetlands, and is a swamp tree. It likes boggy areas. They love water, and their roots are often a shelter for fish, and their leaves also decompose in the water, providing a lot of nutrients to the aquatic life. The Ogham tied to the Alder is the fern, meaning that you are an individual, but so is everyone else. It comes up when you need to see the uniqueness in other people, but also allow them to see the uniqueness in you. It can also be a call to be a mediator or a kind of peacekeeper. Those born under the Alder tree are natural pathfinders. They can make their own way in the world. Alder folk are very skilled at being self-made and are drawn to creating their own opportunities. If you are an Alder, you have a very broad appeal, a broad charm, and can get along with almost anyone. You really value your time and are very protective of how it is used. Your greatest annoyance is feeling like you've had your time wasted. You are very motivated by results rather than talk. You are careful with who you take advice from and tend to be more drawn to other avant-garde personalities and seeking their guidance. Alder folk people who haven't integrated their shadow can tend to feel very out of body, can possibly be very accident prone, but once you do the inner work and do become connected to your meat suit, you will be surprised by your inner confidence, by your emotional strength, and by the amount of grace that you carry in your body that you may not have had in earlier years. You'll find that many people wish that they had your confidence. You seek clarity and you want to find the reason for why things are the way that they are. Embracing chaos is another one of your opportunities in your lifetime, and embracing that chaos is a part of life makes you a very adaptable leader that can easily gain you followers for really any cause. You're also known for being very romantic, brave, and generous. Alder folk, again, make great company and seem very exciting because they're constantly on the move, either traveling, trying new things, or mentally exploring the world around them. If you were born between April 15th and May 12th, your sign is the Willow, and the archetype that you have is the Observer. I feel like most people know about willow trees. I think they tend to be a favorite among many. The tree in Pocahontas that she talks to and gets advice from is a willow tree, Grandmother Willow. Willows like a lot of rain, and they are a symbol for grief. They're often planted near cemeteries. Willows are believed to bring strength to people in times of loss and despair. They are there for you when you need to seek solace. The Ogham letter tied to the willow is Salvi. It talks about spiritual knowledge, spiritual growth, a lot about women's mysteries and cycles. Its message is that you cannot evolve without changing, that learning lessons and having experiences, even difficult ones, are a part of the human experience. Willow personalities are very forgiving and very trusting. If you were born under the sign of the willow, you really want to take away people's pain. You have a very flexible strength. You tend to bend rather than to break. You have your own kind of resiliency, but you can become very resentful if you do not feel appreciated. It is very important that you communicate your needs within your connections, as you tend to put yourself in situations where you can be taken advantage of. But when willow folk can kind of figure out where to put their energy correctly, they will see how much good karma they tend to have and become very skilled at negotiation and energy exchange. It's very hard to get anything by a willow personality. You see a lot, but you don't say much because you have such a big heart. You see the good in people and you can easily figure out why they are the way that they are. But you tend to be a bit of a mystery to yourself. You may feel like you were born into this life with a very melancholic nature, so the inner exploration can be really daunting, and because you want to avoid that pain that you feel in yourself, you want to take it away from other people. But it is important that you give yourself as much compassion as you're putting out. Otherwise, you will continue to attract a kind of disharmony in your life. Willows are extremely emotionally intelligent and articulate. They are very connected to the moon, tend to have an affinity for language, learning language, and have a very good memory. And if you have a willow friend in your life, be sure to check up on them from time to time. They are probably going through more than they are letting on. If you are born between May 13th and June 9th, your tree sign is the Hawthorn. Your archetype is the illusionist. The Hawthorn is such a fairy tree, it hurts. These trees are very wild and enchanting. They are shrubs, so you can bring them to the knights who say me. Just kidding, because there's a lot of fairy lore about getting pretty messed up if you cut a hawthorn because they're rumored to be fairy portals. The trunk bends and twists and gets more kind of gnarled as it ages, but it has berries, flowers, thorns, and attracts a lot of wildlife, home to a lot of bugs and birds, and I believe some frogs. The Ogham is H. Huath, talks about obstacles, feeling held back, obstruction, also a connection to horror and fear. So Hawthorn energies are incredible at releasing blocked energy. Their challenge is really facing their fears in this lifetime, but knowing that that's also where they find their power. So if you are a Hawthorn, you feel like you may have more energy than you know what to do with, and if you don't have the right outlet, you can feel easily agitated or aggressive, or even kind of have a kind of paralysis of the mind where you just shut down. However, you are meant to be a very courageous spirit who's very open to love and adventure. You may struggle to forgive yourself, which can contribute to stuck energy, so releasing the environments and people in your life that can contribute to this kind of victim complex can be extremely empowering and help you get back into your power. You are meant to do this for yourself first, but then show other people how to break their chains or stuck mentalities. Hawthorns are very interesting because on the outside they can appear completely different from who they are on the inside. You have this creative thirst that is almost unmatched and pairs really well with your curiosity. Hawthorns also have an amazing sense of humor, and comedy can be a huge source of stress relief for them. A Hawthorn personality is very funny, really fun, and can have almost a philosophical understanding of irony. Hawthorns can be very difficult to get to know. They're full of contradiction. Opportunities for Hawthorns is to learn how to release their own pent-up energy and open themselves up to new possibilities and to love, also helping others to understand them. If you were born between June 10th and July 7th, your tree sign is the oak. Your archetype is the stabilizer. The Celtic tree of life is an oak tree. The oak is considered the king of the forest, and the ash is the queen. This tree is associated with midsummer. An oak tree can live up to 800 years and gives us acorns. This tree produces both male and female flowers. The der or der is the 7th letter of the Ogham and literally just means oak. It talks about tenacity, fate, strength, and growth. Those born under the sign of the oak have cosmic ties to nobility and are a very expansive energy. They tend to portal people from one paradigm or the other. Because of this big energy, they can dominate competition with some ease, and what they build in their lifetime is very durable. If you're an oak folk, you have the strength to really prevail almost any obstacle you face. You have a lot of natural endurance. You can be very helpful, very nurturing. You have a very strong craving for structure and feeling a sense of control. If your shadow hasn't been integrated, you may go to extremes if you feel like you are missing that control, including trying to control the people that you love. Oak folk have a very keen intuition and tend to be very protective over the things that they care about. You can feel overwhelmed by your moods at times and can be very self-critical. Again, if the shadow hasn't healed, this can lead to being very self-involved, self-pitying. If your self-esteem or ego has been bruised, oak folk are natural perfectionists, and mediocrity is a great fear of theirs. Just know that you were born in this life with a great power to uplift the underdog, and that also has to include yourself. You are a person of action. You like the feeling of big projects progressing. You embody great spiritual power and determination. You're loyal. You're a good friend. Health and vitality are very important to oak folk. You like to feel in sync with your body and your mind. You tend to be very particular about your food and are very sensitive about the environments that you're around. You have a good sense of justice. You appreciate honesty. You are also born into this life with a lot of natural survival skills and creative gifts. Oak folks tend to be multi-talented people. Some of your best qualities include vision, charm, optimism, and a drive for success. You really enjoy accomplishing your goals and can be very self-motivated. You are very tough. You don't easily give up. an opportunity for oak folk is to feel good enough in just being and not trying to control themselves and the others around them, and letting themselves kind of be this powerful free spirit that they were meant to be, and encouraging that in others. If you were born between July 8th and August 4th, your tree is the holly. Your archetype is the ruler. The holly is usually thought of as a winter plant, but it is for the people born in the middle of the summer. Holly is a hedge that has dark green spiky leaves and red berries that are poisonous to humans but are a good food source for birds. The holly is also considered a king and a twin to the oak king, but he rules the darker half of the year. There's also a lot of ties between Christianity and holly, the leaves being the thorns on Jesus's crown and the red berries being the blood of Christ. The Ogham of holly is T, pronounced Shin-a, I believe. Talks about immortality, unity, courage, and stability. So similar to the oak, holly people have a very regal air to them. They can easily find themselves in positions of high status or power. This is due to them having a lot of rare skill and tact. If you are a holly folk and you experience a setback, you still tend to remain very vigilant and are a natural problem solver. You have a very competitive and ambitious side, but also a very affectionate, kind, very generous side. You are noted for having a very high intellect and tend to move through academics with some ease where other people may find challenge. You're always trying to figure out your true objectives in life, which can keep you goal-oriented even in very informal settings. Your spirit has a natural brilliance to it, which draws people to you, but you can be very firm when you need to be. For a holly, it is important for you to know when to take breaks, to enjoy your life, to protect and cleanse your energy, also when to drop your calculations and take a risk. You have a very practical nature, which can sometimes make you feel like you're playing it safe or like you have to be the responsible one. The shadow aspect of a holly is that you can sometimes be more involved in other people's dreams than your own. You have a very unselfish, sympathetic nature, but you aren't meant to be a shadow. You're meant to take up a lot of space. Actually, it can be hard for holly folk to step out into the light if they haven't carefully planned for it. They can be very sensitive and retreat if things go unplanned. But when you integrate your shadow, holly folk, you realize that unplanned experiences, taking risks, can be a part of your learning experience and can help you achieve your goals. It's great to believe in and support others, but be sure that you give yourself that same support and enthusiasm. It is healthy for you to take time away from the world and clear your energy, but not to hide away from life, because you add a lot of value to the world. I also think it's wonderful that the Celtic animal tied to the holly is a unicorn, which tells you how special you are. If you were born between August 5th and September 1st, your tree is the hazel. Your archetype is the knower. The hazel tree is a reliable food source with a high value being placed on the hazelnut. The tree produces male flowers, these lovely long golden catkins. They grow in hedgerows and look more like a bush at times. They can also form multiple trunks and are one of the oldest native British trees. The Ogham for hazel is Cole, which is C, sometimes read as a K, and it means the life force inside of you. It comes up when you need to take advantage of your creativity and share your knowledge with others so they can learn. It also talks about muses speaking to the gods through your craft and divine inspiration. Hazel folk tend to attract a lot of people in their life, but genuinely like to keep to themselves to enjoy their more quiet qualities. You tend to be very clever and perceptive. Like the holly, you're naturally gifted in academics and higher learning. You are a natural teacher, educator, If you're a Hazel, you're very smart and you have a good knowledge base. You can sometimes come across like a know-it-all, but you are genuinely excited about what you learn and you want to share it. You usually know the right course of action, but when your shadow is unchecked, you tend to make a lot of the same mistakes and can lack the observation you're usually good at because you're not ready to see the reality for what it is. Your life path is a lot about understanding the laws of karma and cultivating wisdom. It can be hard for you to let things go sometimes, but once you decide to learn or change, that decision really sticks. Hazel folks enjoy creating rules, but they do not like following them, so they have more of a rebellious streak and often make their own path in life. Art, inspiration, ancient knowledge is kind of holy to Hazel folk. They're associated a lot with divine inspiration, with muses, and with communing with gods, getting into a kind of artistic flow. They really want to understand their creativity, and what may seem random or wild to others has a very intuitive reasoning for Hazel folk. Hazel folk are generous, fiercely loyal, not just to their loved ones, but also their ideals. They're sympathetic, and they like to be active and explore. You have a deep thirst for understanding people, the world around you, and yourself. So self-development, psychology, metaphysics really draws you in. You really like harmony and will cause a disruption if you feel like your peace of mind is being threatened. You are a very self-sufficient personality, but you can come across very closed off and distrusting. Hazel folks need to know that it is okay to ask for help and to be open to what other energies can bring into your life and to teach you. If you are born between September 2nd and September 29th, your tree is the vine. Your archetype is the equalizer. The vine is also referred to as the bramble. This tree is so pretty. It has pink and purple flowers and it produces blackberries. It's a pretty common sight along the English countryside, and all parts of the plant can be used for healing purposes. In some places of the British Isles, the blackberries were not meant to be eaten and left for the fair folk. The Ogham for the vine is moon, the letter N, or muin. It has a lot to do with prophecy, divination, speaking truth, but also taking time to think before you speak. It can also advise about choosing your personal truth rather than popularity. It can also perhaps talk about being seduced into changing your truth and being wary of certain temptations. If you are a vine folk, you are amazing at initiation and getting projects off the ground. You believe that a good dose of hedonism is really good for the soul. You have big ideas and the capacity to bring them to life. You do like to indulge. You're very deep romantic. It can be hard sometimes for you to forgive people if you felt like you've been wronged. You make a very good partner and tend to feel the most comfortable when you are in a partnership. You have a very sensuous nature and have a knack for aesthetics. You're very calm when facing danger, and if your shadow is unhealed, you may be drawn to danger, either to try and fix and heal it or for the adrenaline. You are great at socializing and are easily adored by those around you. You tend to have an amazing network circle and like to connect other people. You are very spirited, but can get lost sometimes in excessive worry, excessive negativity. You are good-natured, good-humored. People tend to see you as a sweetheart with a lot of appealing qualities. Because vine folk can be refined and concerned with their reputation, it can be difficult for them to embrace their dark side and their wildness. But once they do, they see that life has much more to offer them. You may feel like sometimes your life is more difficult than those around you, and this is a sign that you are out of alignment with your true nature. When vine folk get in touch with themselves and make room for their needs and are honest about their desires, you tend to see that your life flows much more easily. If you are born between September 30th And October 27th, your tree is the ivy. Your archetype is the survivor. The ivy is a fairly common plant, but it has a lot of associations with magic. It can tolerate a lot of harsh conditions. We often see ivy running up abandoned buildings and other forgotten spaces. It's a teacher because it shows us how to keep going when things get difficult. It can also spiral around the trunk of host trees, and in the spring produce these very sweet flowers that butterflies really love. The Ogham for ivy is G. Court, talks about growing freely, banishing negativity and other toxic elements. It can lead you to create more barriers in your life and find like-minded kinfolk. It's a call to transition communities, possibly friend groups, into new ones that resonate with you and your personal calling. People born under the ivy can have a shape-shifting quality to them. They see the good and bad in every situation, so it can be hard for them to choose a side. If you are an ivy folk, you love your guilty pleasures. You come into this life to enjoy refinement and luxury, and you can feel like life is very dull without your vices. That being said, you know how to survive. You know how to do a lot with little. You can kind of sometimes shift between luxury and poverty, kind of having these extremes. You kind of seem to want to experience both. But as you get older, you will tend to find that your finances tend to balance out, and so do your taste. You are really good at keeping up with trends. You are a trendsetter yourself. People are generally curious about your current interests because they know that's going to be the next hot thing. People under this sign tend to be very attractive, and they have a lot of options in romance, but can find it challenging to commit because they just want to experience all of life and can be sometimes indecisive because of that. The strength of ivy folk is their ability to charm almost anyone and get away with a lot more than other people. You love to cultivate a pleasant environment for everyone. You love to make people feel good about themselves, especially during their darkest days. When your shadow is unchecked, you may not understand your core self because you can shift so easily. So it is important for you to commit to learning yourself, your interests and beliefs, and not letting those go because you're afraid it'll make you less likable. I promise it's better to have a few people who genuinely understand you and love you than to be liked by many who literally know nothing about you. You're always willing to help out those in need. You have a beautiful soft spot for those suffering and tend to be there for people even when they don't want to let you in. You grow on people. You have a way, again, of opening doors that are closed to others. Even though you have a sweet side, you do have a very ironclad nature that can get you far. It is important that you don't apologize or give away your success because you are afraid it will make you less popular. I promise that you are not going to stop being the life of the party, no matter how hard you try. So make room for that genuine nature to come through. If you were born between October 28th and November 24th, your tree is the reed. Your archetype is the inquisitor. The reed was believed to be a tree because it had a very dense root system. The reed is used for pipes, pens, flutes. Both reeds and wheat were revered by the Celts because they had so many everyday uses. And in Greek mythology, the god Pan plays the pipe, the panpipes, which were made from reed stems. The Ogham for the reed is Egdel, I believe. It stands for NG, and it talks about taking direct action and understanding that the journey is as important as the destination, about appreciating all the lessons you learn along the way and how that can make your harvest even more meaningful. It can also talk about getting back on track if you've been feeling lost. Reed folk tend to do a lot of their inner work in silence and tend to be very quiet about their suffering. Although they can be very direct when dealing with confrontation, they are very natural problem solvers, really drawn to the mysteries of life. Reed folk are very regal and command a natural sense of respect of those around them. They can really be seen as intimidating because they have this very bright, strong, silent aura. But once you get to know them and their walls come down, you can really see that the reed personality is kind of an iceberg. If you are a reed folk, you are very soulful. You are very sensitive to the world, including the spirit world. So at times you may feel more connected to the other side than this 3D experience. You have a desire for the truth and to see things as they really are. You have the ability to see through people, which can make you very powerful friends, but very powerful enemies. But you'll notice that you just really don't care that much. And so people often find you refreshing, even if they don't agree with you all the time. You are more concerned with making silent moves and creating greater success over time. So even your opponents tend to admire you. Reed folk tend to trigger people because they can be so unapologetic. It is important for reed folk to have a strong sense of purpose. Otherwise, their very potent energy can turn very self-destructive very quickly. Reed folk who have integrated their shadow are extremely independent, have a great amount of inner strength. If this is your sign, just know that, again, it is okay to ask for help. It is not a sign of strength to feel like you have to suffer alone. You have an ability to overcome incredible odds and should enjoy your magnetic personality. If you were born between November 25th and December 23rd, your tree is the Elder tree. Your archetype is the Seeker. The Elder tree has a lot to do with fairy lore and witch superstitions. Wherever it grows, that space is considered to be protected and sacred. The Elder tree is all over the British Isles. It has very lovely white flowers with yellow centers that grow in the spring. Elderflower can be used as a syrup in tonics, and in the autumn, the tree grows purple blackberries called elderberries. Elderflower and elderberries can be found in teas, cocktails, ointments. They have a lot of medicinal properties and have a lot of multi-purpose uses. Its light wood can be used to make the elder flute, which creates a very haunting, beautiful melody, myth to be able to contact the spirit world, the other worlds. It is considered extremely unlucky to cut one of these trees down. The Ogham for the elder is Ruez R, and is connected to the winter solstice. It's about maturing, and that while being childish can have negative aspects, that being childlike is a beautiful quality to retain as you get older. It is about being open to new experiences and letting that become a part of our identity, that even if we get hurt, we can also heal. There is a strong connection to this Ogham, to the Fae. If you are an elder folk, you are free-loving, you are free-spirited. Your wisdom often comes from experience, and sometimes you can learn things the hard way. If this is your sign, you need a consistent outlet for your adrenaline that also helps you to be social. So any kind of competitive or adventure-based sport is going to be perfect for you. Despite the fact that you are a social sign, you can tend to shy away quickly if you feel like you are being perceived as too much. Your opportunity is learning how to embrace your shine and take up space. You are a deep thinker, and sometimes people can be surprised by your brutal honesty, which can make you again pull back if you're feeling misunderstood. The wisdom in your lifetime is to learn that there's no such thing as ultimate truth, and opinions are not necessarily facts. Being honest doesn't really have much to do with being angry or mean, as more as it is about being clear and offering specifications with sincerity. Because of this, people may not assume that your heart is as big as it really is, and you may feel like an outsider. So the brutal honesty can be a bit of a defense mechanism. Once an elder folk discovers how to truly embrace themselves and not to be their own enemy, they let other people see how extremely wise they can be, how much they've learned from their personal experience, and how non-judgmental they can be as well. This makes you an excellent advisor. People born under the elder tree have a very strong connection to their ancestors and their cultural roots. which are always going to be a very strong part of their experience in this lifetime. Elder folk who have integrated their shadow help people to get unstuck. They help them to heal, to usher in a new beginning. They are fun. You are infectious. You are ambitious, larger than life, and teach us not to get too stuck in our ways. Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was really fun to make, but the fairy ring is a very self-propelled passion. I do my own editing, recording, writing, and research. So if you would like to continue seeing content on this podcast, please support by leaving a review. I tried my best to be thorough in my research, but if I made a mistake or mispronounced something, that's on me, but I did provide the sources that I used for research in this episode in the show notes below. I highly encourage you to do your own research, to get curious. One of my intentions with this podcast is for people to embrace their strange interest and to celebrate their strangeness. What makes you weird is likely one of your most beautiful qualities. And when you approach those qualities with curiosity instead of judgment, you will thrive under your own self-love. It's possible to change your mindset, to see things in a new way. Humans were made to create. We were made to learn. We were made to evolve and to change. It's a part of why we came here. This meat suit that you have is a short temporal experience. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy your life. Be the one who's brave enough to say, fuck it, I'm not afraid to be different. Because if enough of us do that, then it becomes a safe world for people to embrace all of their individual characteristics that makes everyone beautiful, everyone unique. Everyone is special, including you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Fairy Ring. I hope that you enjoyed it. And until next time, I'm wishing you the world. Take care.